So recently, I was working on a video going over tech choices for Traptrix since they've gotten some fairly good cards lately. Originally, it was going to just give a quick summary of the best trap holes, but then I thought that doesn't really give you a proper overview of your options, does it? So the script kept getting longer, and now, well, you've got this. So, to present it in a fun way, I decided to make it into a tier list. People like tier lists, right? So what makes a trap hole good or bad? Basically, you're looking at two things: the activation requirement and the payoff for achieving it. A card could banish everything your opponent controls, but if it's too hard to pull off, then it's still not very good. On the other hand, a fairly weak effect but with an easy to activate condition can still make the card quite good. This logic kinda just applies to everything in Yu-Gi-Oh, by the way, so it's a fairly good way of rating things. I'll be covering these cards from worst to best, putting them in their corresponding tiers. I'll mostly be considering them for their use in a Traptrix deck, but if they're useful elsewhere, I will mention it. D tier is for laughably bad cards that you'll never use, while C tier is for ones that are also bad, that you'll also never use, but that don't quite make you feel insulted just by reading them. B tier is for situational cards that can be quite good, while A tier is for generally solid cards. Finally, S tier is the absolute cream of the crop that manages to be useful even outside of Traptrix decks. So, without further ado, to start with the absolute bottom of the barrel, take a look at DD Trap Hole. Remember what I said about the condition and the payoff? Well, this card's condition is that your opponent needs to set one monster. When was the last time you saw someone do that, besides maybe turn 5 when all your opponent has in their hand is one Ash Blossom? And the payoff is that you get to target both that monster and one of your own monsters, and then you destroy and banish both of them. Why an effect this weak would need a downside? Who knows. You don't even get to benefit from your Traptrix monsters being immune to this effect though, since if they don't get destroyed, you also won't get to banish your opponent's card. It's garbage. Moving on, the second worst trap hole involves Gemini monsters. And yes, it somehow isn't the worst one. When a Gemini monster, that has been Gemini summoned already, is destroyed by battle, you get to destroy all of your opponent's monsters. Put like that, it does sound like it could be the worst one, doesn't it? I mean, Gemini monsters just aren't a thing, no matter how they might try and buff Chemi critters. So you'll probably never actually get to activate it. But if you do, a field wipe is a decent effect, and at least it doesn't actively punish you for trying to resolve it. Next in D tier is Acid Trap Hole. Again, this one activates by targeting a face down monster, which as we've established is not too common nowadays. Your reward? Well, if it had 2000 or less defense, you get to destroy it. Otherwise, you get to, well, look at it, I guess. Oh yeah, you do also get to trigger your opponent's flip effects. Squamatas rejoice. And please, don't try to be smart by saying it synergizes well with Floodgate Trap Hole. I should not have to explain why that's a bad idea. Anyway, this one only beats out DD Trap Hole since at least you're not punished for using it. Well, unless you do use it against a flip monster deck. By the way, fun trivia time, this almost useless card has an alternate artwork. I guess maybe it was useful back in the day? Next is Adhesion Trap Hole. Now this card does have an upside. When it comes to being easy to activate, all this one needs is for your opponent to summon a monster, so it doesn't get much easier than that. Where it fails is the effect. All you get to do is halve your opponent's attack, which hasn't been very relevant in, well, a long time. Besides, most Traptrix monsters have such low attack that it still won't be enough to protect them. Now at the end of D tier, we have Trap Hole of Spikes. When your opponent attacks with a monster they summoned this turn, you get to destroy that monster and burn your opponent for its attack. The upside is that it doesn't target, and the burn could be nice, but the fact that you have to wait until battle and that it only works on monsters summoned this turn really drags it down. It's kind of funny in Traptrix burn builds for stuff like Gravediggers and Ghost Mourner, which, believe it or not, is a build some people try to run. So we've finally graduated out of D tier, moving up onto C tier. Cards that are still bad, but that you could sort of make an argument for. Sometimes. To kick it off, we have the OG card, Trap Hole itself. That's right, somehow they made 6 cards worse than the one they were inspired by. Its main shortcoming is not working on special summons, and only destroying instead of anything stronger. It also doesn't work on anything under 1000 attack. Basically, it has a lot of downsides for a not particularly strong effect. But if you're lucky, it can shut down some fairly bad decks that really need their normal summon to survive. Plus, I just didn't want to deal with the backlash of older players if I put this in D tier. Next up is Chaos Trap Hole. At a cost of 2000 life points, you get to negate the summon of a light or dark monster and then banish it. Fairly strong considering those are 2 attributes that are almost always meta, right? Well, its main problem is that it's a counter trap, removing a ton of synergy it could have had with Traptrix. You can't search it with Sarah, nor does it trigger her effects. It's a shame since the artwork is pretty cool, but you have no real reason to run this in a Traptrix deck. So now we're starting to get to the cards that are almost usable, the first of which is Giant Trap Hole. All it takes is for 2 monsters to be special summoned at once, and as a reward you get to destroy all monsters on the field. Your own Traptrix monsters are protected from this, so you don't need to worry too much about your own field. The only problem is that summoning 2 monsters at once just isn't too common. Even things like Sword Souls and then their tokens, or Parallel Exceed, counts as 2 separate summons, so you won't get to activate it off of those. It could be good if there's ever a meta deck that really does do that often though. Break Off Trap Hole is the next one, and it's just slightly too specific to actually be good. You need to wait for a Link monster to be Link summoned, and in exchange you can destroy all non-linked monsters on the field. Usually it's just kind of low impact. You might destroy the Link monster itself if they make it early enough, and maybe some other monsters if they avoid making the Links point towards them, but the situations where this will be better than one of the higher tier cards are just too few and far between. However, a fun use of it in later turns could be a state in which you have Rafflesia on the board, and then you Link summon a Sarah. Since it doesn't actually have to be your opponent that Link summons the monster, you've just met the activation conditions, and so you can use Rafflesia to send it to the graveyard and blow everything up. Let's not pretend that that's enough to use it for though. To finish off C tier with a card that's almost good, here's Double Trap Hole. All you need is for your opponent to special summon something in defense position, and you get to non-targeting banish it. Unlike Setting, special summoning in defense position is fairly common, since it's just generally safer, and dodges stuff like Lightning Storm. So yeah, this card can usually get rid of combo pieces, potentially stopping the whole combo. The only problem is that, once it actually gets to the boss monster, your opponent will probably put those in attack mode, so you won't get to banish them, and even if they don't, they'll probably have a negate on board by then, making it too late to actually be useful. As we move on to B tier, we start to see situational cards with good rewards, or easy to use cards with decent rewards. In the most competitive of Traptrix decks, you probably won't encounter most of these unless they're just trying to counterpick a certain meta, but in budget builds, or builds that just want to be a bit different, these can be good choices. The first is Deep Dark Trap Hole, which gives you a non-targeting banish of a level 5 or higher effect monster being special summoned. A good reward was a slightly specific condition which really all depends on the meta. While we're not seeing high level main deck monsters all too often, synchro monsters are still on the table for this effect, so it can deal with some fairly strong boss monsters, even dodging most of their protection. In general, it's quite good for the synchro focus metas, hence the Yugioh Guardian falling to his doom. The next one is very similar, and is even used for similar situations, but it checks the attack stat instead of the level. That card is Void Trap Hole. If your opponent summons a monster with 2000 or more attack, you get to negate its effects and then destroy it. Now, destroying isn't as good as banishing, for sure, but being able to negate its effects first still allows you to dodge most of its protection, as well as negating any on-summon effects it might have. Plus, checking for attack instead of level still covers most boss monsters, but allows it to work on Xyz and Link monsters too. Honestly, it's a fairly solid card to deal with any boss monsters your opponent might throw at you. It also deserves an honourable mention for being a Void Trap, meaning this card works with Traptrix, Infernity, and Infernoids. Not confusing at all, I'm sure. This next choice might be a bit controversial, since it's neither as strong as the last card, nor does it have a condition as easy to activate. However, for its niche use with Rafflesia, I do think it earns quite a high position. That card is Treacherous Trap Hole. You need to not have any traps in the graveyard to activate it, and when you do, you can target 2 monsters and destroy them. Targeting destruction isn't great, and being shut down by any back row removal, or just your own combos with Shade Brigandine, isn't great. But here's why it's still worth considering. When going second, it actually allows you to activate a trap hole offensively without needing your opponent to act first. This is because it never actually mentions your opponent needing to summon anything. Because of this, as long as your graveyard is free from traps, it will be live, so as long as you can summon a Rafflesia, you can then immediately have a quick effect to destroy 2 cards. With how bad of a deck Traptrix are at going second, it can be a good one-off card in your side deck for when you have to go second. The next one is both easy to use and has a good reward. That card is Network Trap Hole. The condition? For your opponent to special summon from the main deck or graveyard. And the reward? Well, that monster gets banished, face down. Without needing to target it first, of course. This is pretty much the strongest form of removal, so nobody's arguing that the payoff is good. And summoning from the main deck or graveyard happens all of the time in good decks. Watch Salamangrates have their one and only Gazelle deleted from existence, and you'll understand. The only problem is that this card doesn't really deal with extra deck monsters. Which brings us to the next card. Time Space Trap Hole. Working on monsters summoned from the hand or extra deck, it basically works as a counterpart to Network Trap Hole, and between the two of them you've basically got everything covered. You do need to pay 1000 life points for this one, and it shuffles back into the deck instead of banishing face down, but that's still really good removal, and since you're able to use it on extra deck monsters, it's still slightly better. We've finally reached A tier now, which means we're looking at cards you're probably always going to see in Traptrix decks. The first of which really does want to be played in that deck since it even has Traptrix in its name. I am of course talking about Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. This card gets to be this high because it contains one particular word: negate. Any monster your opponent summons this turn will have its effects negated and then be destroyed. And what's nice about this is that it doesn't actually have to activate on summon. It's a real shame about the restriction making it not work on something your opponent summoned last turn, but otherwise it's a solid card. Then we have a classic one, that's still somehow one of the best. That's right, I'm putting Bottomless Trap Hole in A tier. Why? Well, it's both really simple to activate, as well as having a good payoff. As long as what your opponent banishes has at least 1500 attack, it destroys and banishes it. Basically it's great for interrupting combos, since it'll not only remove something, but also shut down any graveyard recursion that your opponent might have been relying on. Banishing is just a good effect, and this does it fairly well, even though it does have to destroy first. Finally we have Floodgate Trap Hole, which is a deceptively good card. It works on any type of summon, both normal and special, with no restrictions, so already it's got a great activating condition. As for the effect, it forces them into face down defense position, and then locks them there forever. This means that they're useless for all extra deck summons except fusions. This basically removes the monster, and replaces it with a liability that will just be getting in the way of their link array management and clogging up their board until you're ready to try an ATK. Not working on links is a shame, but it still gets in the way of link decks enough for it to be usable. You'll want to be playing this card. So, what's left? Well, if you've been paying attention, you know what the one and only S tier Trap Hole card is. Being the newest addition to the Trap Hole series, it's also the strongest, and helped to make Traptrix a lot more relevant. I am, of course, talking about Gravedigger's Trap Hole. Unlike most Trap Holes, this one doesn't need to wait for a summon, instead waiting for your opponent to activate a monster effect in their hand, graveyard, or banished zone. Once they do, this negates that effect and then burns them for 2000. Because it doesn't care about the field, this card helps cover for all the other Trap Holes which pretty much only work on the field. Shutting down graveyard recursion or some notable special summons from the hand, it can really slow down some decks, and then makes it so much easier to finish them off thanks to the burn, something Traptrix have a lot of trouble doing without. This card is good enough to even escape the confines of Traptrix decks. Thanks to a package of Parallel Exceed and Rafflesia, this card gives a bunch of fragile decks hand trap protection, most notably from Nibiru. Put all of that together and you've got yourself a really powerful card. But the cherry on top? It's not even a once per turn, meaning it's very easy to just halve your opponent's life points while interrupting their plays. And so here we have it, the Trap Hole tier list. What did you think? Would you place certain cards in different tiers? Or would you like to see another Yu-Gi-Oh tier list later? Tell me in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching!